Good morning, everyone. It's Dr. Kathy Miller from Indiana University. Was catching up on some reading over the recent holidays, and I want to make sure you all take a critical look at the PATHFINDER study by Professor Deb Schrag and colleagues. Now, you'll find this in the October 7th version of the Lancet, and many of you will know the PATHFINDER study is one of the first large studies looking at the Grail multitumor detection blood test. This test looks for methylation signatures in a blood sample that might suggest the presence of a malignancy. And based on the methylation signature, it also gives some direction as to where the site of origin of that cancer may be. And the test is not diagnostic. Subjects then need to undergo additional evaluation to find or not find cancer. We have several problems with this study after looking at the details. Now, first, here's what's reported. There were 6,662 subjects enrolled, about 2/3 of them women. Most of the patients were up to date on screening for colon cancer, about 91%. 80% of patients were up to date on screening for breast cancer. So that already tells you this is a pretty high-resourced population because those screening adherence rates are much better than what we typically see in the U.S. Now, the test was positive in 92 subjects, 1.4%. Of those, after an evaluation taking on average 57 days, 35 subjects were found to have a confirmed cancer. And after testing that took on average 162 days, 57 subjects were not found to have a cancer. Over the 12-month period of follow-up, of those patients who tested negative, 86 patients were found to have cancer. So let's think about this for a minute. You get this blood test, you're told it's positive, and we think you probably have a cancer. And it took 162 days to be told, we've looked as hard as we can look, you don't find a cancer. That's not a very comfortable position for patients and their providers to be in. And the test told roughly 2 patients they probably have a cancer for every 1 patient who they found a cancer. The test also missed between 2 to 3 cancers everyone that they found over just a year of follow-up. Now, that is a screening test compared to the false positive and false negative rates for organ-specific screening, like colorectal cancer and breast cancer. Those are not good numbers. We also need to take a careful look at what are the cancers they found. 12 patients found to have lymphoma. Most of those follicular low-grade lymphomas. 2 patients with CLL, many of whom would be observed. 2 patients with Waldenstrom's. 1 patient with plasma cell malignancy. We look at the solid tumors. 5 patients found to have breast cancer. A couple of patients with GI malignancies, most of those stage 4. 1 patient with stage 3, high-grade serous ovary cancer. 2 patients with prostate cancer. 1 biochemical relapse. So this was a patient who had already been diagnosed previously. 1 patient with stage 4 disease. It's a little hard to look at the cancers they found and come to the conclusion that this test would really have been helpful. Did we actually help these patients, or did we just find disease for which treatment and outcome was not going to be different? Now, that would really take a randomized test, and it will take much more investigation to know. My biggest problem as a researcher with this study is a mismatch between data that are reported in their primary endpoints and their goals and conclusions. The goal of this study was to prove that this test was feasible. And the conclusion in the abstract is that it was feasible. But the primary endpoint was to simply describe how many days did it take to come to a final evaluation in patients who had a positive test to say, yes, there's a cancer, no, there's not. Primary objective feasibility is never defined. No idea what would they have considered feasible. What time was too long? What time was too short? What results would possibly have led these investigators to conclude that this was not feasible? Now, before you think I am entirely negative in this area. I think these tests will find a place. I think there are situations where they may be valuable. But this study and the conclusions just simply don't get us there. Take a look yourself and see what you think.